Alrighty, well, we'll get started. Welcome, everyone.
Thank you.
We're going to talk about dementia versus normal aging, the differences, what is normal aging, what is dementia, a little bit about the different types of dementia, and then some ways that we can reduce our risk. So that's how we're going to start. So I am Liz Cornish. I'm the owner of New Season in Life. I have spent 35 years as doing home care physical therapy, mostly in assisted living and memory care communities. I am a certified dementia care specialist and a certified dementia practitioner. That's a little bit about me. So some statistics to start. There's over 50 million worldwide are living with dementia, to a tune of $290 billion in annual costs. 1 in 3 seniors die with Alzheimer's or dementia, and there are almost 10 million new cases every single year. This is the staggering. There's over 16 million unpaid caregivers. That means husbands, wives, daughters, sons, aunts, uncles, nieces, nephews, people that are not professional caregivers taking care of people with dementia or Alzheimer's. 2 out of 3 people with dementia are women, and there are more than 100 diseases that contribute to dementia. I know it says cause, but that contribute to dementia. And it's the 6th leading cause of death and the 5th leading cause of death for those over 65. So let's start with normal aging. Normal aging is occasionally having some word finding difficulty, but you're able to recall that word given some time. Or not being able to remember a name, but the name comes back to you at 9 at night. Ah, it was Susan, right? Misplacing an item, but you have the ability to retrace your steps. So, where are my keys? Where are my keys? Where are my keys? Okay, wait a minute. Let's stop and think. Okay, came in, and I had to go to the bathroom really bad, so I went to the bathroom, and let me go. Oh, they're on the bathroom sink, right? Not a place that you would normally find keys, but if you trace it back, you're able to do that. Or, what was I wearing? Where's my wallet? What was I wearing yesterday? Okay, going back, okay, yep, these pants, this skirt, I changed my pocketbook to this pocketbook. I can go back and retrace things and find where I put things. Occasional memory issues, but issues that aren't significant enough to affect your daily living. So you may forget the name of a person that you only see occasionally, or miss out of context. And you see someone and you know the face, but can't come up with that name. That's normal aging, right? Because it's not in the same context. It's not someone that you see all the time. It's that person that you meet in the grocery store and you're like, oh my gosh, it's so good to see you. Who are you? Or you tell your spouse, you go, I know this person, I'm going to say hi, don't ask me to introduce you. Okay, right? Or introduce yourself, because I can't remember their name, right? Those are the types of normal things that are normal aging. Just before we go on, I'm just going to kind of go through some myths about normal aging. People think that as you age, you don't need as much sleep. That's not true. I get people all the time that say, "Oh, well, I'm not doing much. I only need to sleep 3 hours." No, that's not true. That depression is normal in older adults. That's not true. Depression is never normal. Okay? That older adults can't learn new things. That is absolutely false. I think we proved that during COVID when so many seniors learned how to use Zoom, right? I had 95-year-olds communicating with their families. They never used a computer in their life, and they're like, okay, you get the tablet, and they're like, okay, I push this, and then this, and then this. Yep, that's what you do, right? So they were able to learn. I have so many seniors that learn how to use Alexa, right? So seniors can certainly, even old, what we call, we have seniors, then we have old seniors, and then we have old seniors. I have a senior who was 101 at the time, and she learned how to use both Zoom and Alexa to communicate with her family through COVID. Memory problems always mean it's Alzheimer's disease. That's not true. Okay? Memory problems, some are part of normal, some memory is part of normal aging. Some memory can be contributed to a variety of things that we're going to go through in a little bit. And some means that there is some dementia coming, but it's not always. And then one of the other things is that older adults don't need to exercise. I hear that all the time. Well, I'm 85, I don't need to do anything. Well, that's not true. Your body still needs exercise, your muscles still need exercise, your heart needs exercise, your lung needs exercise. So we need to continue to exercise as we age, as we move into our senior years. We need to continue to do those things. So we're going to start off with mild cognitive impairment. And mild cognitive impairment is not a clinical diagnosis, it's the doctor's best guess. So it's somebody who does not score on a dementia assessment that they have dementia, but there's something not quite. They're forgetting a little bit more than you would think would be normal, but it's really the doctor's best guess. It's not clinical. It's not an absolute predecessor to dementia, but it's hinting towards something's a little bit off. Slightly noticeable, but there are measurable cognitive declines. People with mild cognitive impairment are at risk, increased risk for developing Alzheimer's, but 1 in 5 people with mild cognitive impairment will return to normal functioning in 3 to 4 years, and we have no idea why. Okay, so some people do return to normal functioning, and some people do kind of continue a slide down into dementia. Dementia. So, dementia is, I like to tell people, it's the umbrella. So, dementia is the umbrella term. Under dementia, there are several forms, many forms of dementia. Okay? But it's the overall term that describes a wide range of symptoms with a decline in memory or thinking that's severe enough to affect a person's daily life. Okay? It refers to a loss of memory or intellect, rational skills, social skills, and things that would be considered normal. So you can have dementia, some form of a dementia, and really just have some behavioral changes. I'm working with a client right now, and her husband has dementia, but he still drives. He still runs his Bible study at church, but he has these behavioral anger outbursts. He has the inability to rationally think and reason, and to come up with critical thinking abilities. But if you talked with him, he could carry on a normal conversation, you would never know. Right? And he can lead things that are rote to him. He knows his Bible inside and out. He can lead a Bible study absolutely without any issues whatsoever. He can answer questions. He can do all of that. So it doesn't necessarily have to be complete just memory loss. Okay? And it is not the same in every person. Every person's experience is different. And we like to say, when you meet one person with dementia, you have met one person with dementia. Everybody is different. And that's why I always caution people, don't talk to, don't talk, but don't get advice from one person or another. Well, my mother has dementia too, and we did this, this, and this. Well, that person's mom may be presenting completely and totally different than your mom. And so things that worked for her may work, but they may not work for you. So everybody is different, and everybody really needs an individualized plan. So it's very, very different with each and every person. There is no cure. However, there are some treatments. They're both social and medical. And there's been many things that have been found to reduce symptoms. So we're not going to get into the medications per se, but there are medications out there. There are breakthroughs coming through every day with research. But there are also things to do to reduce behaviors. We're going to talk a little bit about those in a little bit. Just socially, ways to help someone with dementia. Okay, but dementia is not ever a part of normal aging. Okay, so when someone says, oh, they're 95 and maybe they have dementia because, they're 95. No, that's not correct. You can be 95 and be as sharp as a tack. Okay, it's a disease process. It's not a part of normal aging. So some common symptoms: memory loss that affects day-to-day function, changes in planning or problem solving, difficulty performing familiar activities, confusion about time and space is a big one, language struggles, managing finances, poor and decreased judgment, changes in behavior or personality, and loss of initiative. Now, I use my mom a lot. She's okay with it, so it's all right. Mm-hmm. But she's on that mild cognitive, probably progressed. We haven't had her retested, probably to some mild dementia right now. But looking at difficulty managing finances, she does all her own finances. But I go back and check every so often because, she forgot a zero one time, and she forgot it in her favor. But she was sitting with a large sum of money in her checking account and didn't realize it. She thought it was only a couple $1,000s, right? She had lost a zero somewhere. And, she had $20,000 sitting in her checking account, which really needed to move over to a savings account, right, to be a little bit more protected. Confusion about time and place. I had a gentleman the other day. They were looking at assisted living for their dad, and they were all set, ready to move in, and literally the night before, the father got up, knew he had a dentist appointment, got up, got dressed, drove to his dentist appointment, only it was 2 a.m. Okay. And he had no idea, and the police ended up calling his son, saying, he's here, trying to have a dentist appointment. He's not understanding that it's 2 a.m. Kind of, what do we do? And so we had to quickly shuffle because the son didn't realize that he had that kind of deficit. He needed more of a secure community because if he's going to get up at 2 a.m. and take off, that's an issue. So that time and place, not understanding where that time and place is. Language struggles. More than just forgetting a couple words. Sometimes people with dementia will talk to you in complete and total paragraphs that make absolutely no sense to you. But they're relaying the message to you. They'll look eye to eye and go, and then she came and then she went away and I don't know what to do with this and that. And they're having that conversation and they expect you, because in their head it's coming out, but those language struggles. So their wording may be difficult. Decreased judgment. I had a client who she had septic issues, but she didn't know it, and so we were working with her and kind of discovered this, and I said, oh, has anything been backed up? Oh no, I only get 4 inches of water when I shower in the tub. Right? None of us think that that's normal. None of us would say, oh, that's okay. Right? But she didn't have the judgment to realize that was an issue. it started at 2 inches, and a little bit and a little bit, and it's that slow boiling frog. So she never thought it was an issue, but that's an issue. So it's not always dementia. And that's why I say, we talked about were 100 different diseases that can lead to or mimic dementia. So it's not always dementia. Some treatable conditions that people often mistake people having dementia: medication effects. We do not metabolize medication the same when we're 65 as we do when we're 85. So a medication that you may have been on when you're 65, 75, it's working great, no problem, and then at a certain age, it may now have effects that affect your cognition, that affect your memory, that cause you to look like you have some dementia symptoms. Or an older adult going to a primary care physician that may not be as well versed in geriatrics, may prescribe a medication. Pain is a great one. If you give someone that has a little bit of a memory, mild cognitive impairment, a narcotic, you will see a significant change many times in their cognition. And so many times people will say, oh my goodness, she's developed dementia. And it may not be. You take them off of those narcotics and the cognition clears. Urinary tract infections, dehydration. So the first thing that I do when someone comes to me and says, my mother has had a lot of memory problems lately. I say, well, how lately? Has this been a sudden onset? Has this been a pretty quick onset? If it's been a pretty quick onset, we want to look A, at medications, and B, at urination. So urinary tract infections in both men and women mimic symptoms of dementia. And older women especially do not feel urinary tract symptoms like you did when you were 30, 40, 50. When you're 30, 40, 50, you know when you have a urinary tract infection. When you're 80, you may not even feel it. You may not have any idea that you have a urinary tract infection. Okay, our body changes. It doesn't give us those same signals. Dehydration oftentimes is the trigger that leads to the urinary tract infection. We get dehydrated, our bladders then have this incredible breeding ground for bacteria, right? And a lot of seniors don't drink enough water. Why don't they drink enough water? Because if they drink enough water, then they have to go to the bathroom a lot of times, and it's this cycle, right? So there are a significant number of seniors who walk around every day dehydrated. And if you just reach that little threshold of dehydration where we have a little bacteria, now we bloom into urinary tract infections and we have cognitive changes. So staying hydrated and being aware of that, but the first thing when someone says to me, oh, my mom has had or my dad has had some changes in his memory and his cognition, one of the first things we want to do is get a urinalysis. Take a look. Is this sudden? We want to check and rule those things out because those are easy fixes. A head injury. So, has there been a recent fall? Did they bang their head? Has there been a recent fall that you didn't know? They told you they fell and they told, no, I'm fine, but you didn't see it. Could they possibly have banged their heads? Because our seniors, as we age, people are strong, proud. They don't want to have help. They don't want to be a burden on family. And so I see more often than not, if seniors fall, I'm fine, no problem. Did you hit your head? Nope, I'm good. Maybe not. Maybe they hit their head, maybe they didn't realize it. But did they have a head injury? Diabetes. Diabetes is one of the huge risk factors for leading to dementia. Because with diabetes, you have decreased blood flow, you have decreased circulation. That means blood flow to the brain as well. So people with diabetes tend to have increased risk of dementia. Hearing loss. So this is another fun one. Many times, I can't even tell you, there's been so many times where someone has come to me and, we think so-and-so has dementia. Okay, so I sit down and talk, and we're talking, and they're looking at me, and I can tell they're reading my lips, and so I cover up, and they can't see. They can't understand what I'm saying. When I speak right into their ear, they're good. They can answer the questions. If I turn away and talk to them, like, you may be talking over here, but have someone over here, and she can't see the face, then it looks like they're trying to fit in. They're not going to admit they don't want hearing aids. They're not going to admit that they have a hearing issue, but they may be trying to cover that. Oh yeah, I agree. And it's totally inappropriate. So maybe hearing loss. We've had several people where we've got them hearing aids, and all of a sudden their cognition is fine. Now they're hearing what you're saying, and they can answer appropriately. It wasn't cognition at all. It was hearing loss. Brain tumors. So we always want to get if there's a sudden onset of cognitive changes, we always want to get a full workup. That may include having a CAT scan or an MRI to check for any brain tumors. Vitamin and hormone deficiencies. So believe it or not, if you have vitamin deficiencies or hormone deficiencies, that can change your cognitive status. So if you have low sodium, you can become incredibly confused, and it look exactly like dementia. Okay? Knowing this is exactly one of the things that happened to my mom. Knowing this, I missed it. Okay? Until she ended up in the hospital. And her sodium level was so low, they had her on seizure precautions, they had her on bumper pads in the bed because they didn't want her hitting it. Oh yeah, it was bad. But hormone deficiency, she wasn't drinking, her kidneys weren't working right, and so ended up with this sodium deficiency. And everybody tells she's a diabetic, and it's got some heart issues, so low salt diet. So she didn't use salt at all, so we ended up on the other end. So, and I'm not saying to use salt if your doctor says told you not to, but just be aware if there's a sudden onset, it may be something we regulated her sodium back to normal. Depression can look like dementia. So if someone's depressed, that loss of initiative we saw in the last slide, someone not doing anything, not wanting to do anything, not wanting to participate, that may be dementia, but it may be depression. So we want to again take a look at that, have a doctor's assessment, see if there is a reasonable risk or a reasonable thing to be treating that person for a depression. Okay? And then thyroid, kidney, and liver problems can also contribute, can also cause signs and symptoms of dementia. Okay, so remember that umbrella term of dementia. Under dementia, Alzheimer's disease is the most common form of dementia. So I just always stress this. Dementia is not part of Alzheimer's. Alzheimer's is it's a form of dementia. Okay? Vascular dementia is the second most common, and that's a lot of times when people have multiple little strokes. Diabetics tend to get the vascular dementia because it has to do with the blood circulation and the lack of blood flow to the brain. Lewy body disease is a rapidly progressive dementia. It tends to progress significantly more quickly than other dementias. And then we have Parkinsonian, right? Someone with Parkinson's disease can develop dementia as well. Doesn't necessarily have to, but a lot of times they develop a dementia where they see some hallucinations and those types of things that kind of are key factors for their type of dementia. Frontal temporal dementia most often in younger seniors. Those are the 50-year-olds that all of a sudden have dementia. And then chronic traumatic encephalopathy, those are the repeated concussions. Those are our football players, hockey players, soccer players, who've been heading the ball for years and years and years. Having those repeat traumas over and over and over can lead to dementia. Okay. So, ways to decrease your risk of dementia. Because statistics have shown that we can reduce our risk up to 53%. So that's huge. It all revolves around taking personal responsibility for our health, right? So the first way is to do regular physical activity, whether that's walking or jogging or biking, but getting your heart beating, your blood flowing, and your circulation, it's good for all of that. It's good for your mental status, it's good for your weight, and it's good for your heart and lungs. And because of that, it keeps the blood flowing to your brain, and so it's great for your brain. Okay? So walking, biking, any kind of exercise that can get your heart rate up and keep it up aerobically, and also doing some strength. So the results of 11 studies show that regular exercise can reduce the risk of dementia by 30%. That's huge. And for Alzheimer's specifically, the risk was reduced by 45%. Okay? So they recommend that we do aerobic activities, strength building activities at least 3 times a week for at least 30 minutes. Okay? Go have a nice brisk walk, do a little weights, push-ups, but get out and exercise. Okay? Eating healthy. So eating a healthy, balanced diet reduces your risk of dementia, as well as other diseases that can produce dementia-like symptoms and can increase your chances of dementia, like cancer, diabetes, obesity, heart attack, and stroke. Okay? An analysis of diet and other factors found that after an average of 4.5 years, people who adhered to a really good diet reduced the rate of Alzheimer's by 53%. And I'm not saying that you can't, go out and have dinner and have their chocolate cake every once in a while, but that you're eating fruits and vegetables and proteins and those clean, healthy grains, right? A Mediterranean diet. There have been studies out there that are so many different studies that eating a Mediterranean diet decreases your risk of having and developing dementia. Fruits, vegetables, cereals, low in red meat, and low in sugar. If I can't say one thing enough, it is that sugar it should be called cancer. Sugars are so incredibly bad for you in so many ways. They lead to obesity, they lead to heart disease, they increase your risk of dementia. So any sugary snacks and any even the no sugar, if they're putting the other forms of sugar additives into something to sweeten it, you don't want to have the added sugar, you don't want to have the artificial sugars. Water, for your instead of fruit juice or juices, and not adding sugar. Don't add sugar to your coffee. Read the labels. Look at crackers. Look at what you're eating. I picked up something the other day. I think it was peanuts, and it was peanut butter, and it was peanuts, which you expect, right? Peanuts, salt, and sugar. And when I looked, it was 6 grams of added sugar to the peanut butter, and you wouldn't expect it, right? So Sugar is in so many things because manufacturers know that sugar tastes good. And so they want you to like their foods, and so they add sugar. So really watch what you're eating, watch the added sugars, watch the processed foods that you're eating that may contain sugar you're not even aware you're eating. Okay? Don't smoke. Smoking significantly increases your risk of dementia. 14% of Alzheimer's disease worldwide are attributed to smoking. It harms the circulation of the blood throughout the body, particularly with the brain, heart, and lungs. So, I mean, everybody knows by now that smoking is not great. But it also increases your vascular issues, which leads to strokes and bleeds in the brain. And then we're looking at, again, that vascular dementia increases your risk of dementia. Okay, so no smoking. Go on. Excessive alcohol. And I'm not talking your occasional wine or your occasional beer, right? But people that are drinking for long periods of time, a significant amount. So I had a client, actually it was a physical therapy client that I saw, this was back 7 years ago. When I went into his home, I found him on the floor crawling. And I said, what's going on? He said, well, I can't walk, so I crawl. And he couldn't walk because he had developed dementia from years and years of drinking vodka, significant amounts of alcohol every single day. And it had just done so much damage to his brain that he had no balance, he couldn't stand up. And for him, crawling around was completely normal. Right? So alcohol in large quantities can do significant damage to the brain and can lead to dementia. We all know that alcohol kills brain cells, right? And you can't roll those back. So if you're drinking significant amounts, it's going to kill enough brain cells that can cause dementia. Okay. So taking control of your health. This is a big one for me as well. Making sure that you're getting yearly checkups, getting blood work done, seeing your doctor, making sure that you know what's your A1C. Are you pre-diabetic? You don't have to be overweight to be diabetic. Do you know your numbers? The earlier you develop diabetes, the greater your chance of developing dementia. So being aware of that and taking steps now so that you can hopefully prevent the onset of diabetes and then prevent the onset of dementia. High blood pressure. This is a huge one. Long-term research studies have demonstrated that high blood pressure in midlife is a key factor that can increase your risk of developing dementia later in life. Again, primarily vascular dementia, because high blood pressure affects the circulatory system, right? But if you have high blood pressure, your heart's it's pumping harder to get everything moving around. And so you're having less blood flow. So manage that high blood pressure, whether it's through exercise and diet, or if you need to, see your doctor and get on blood pressure medication, but manage that blood pressure because that can have huge effects. It can lead to strokes, it can lead to heart attack, and it can lead to dementia even if you don't have any of those stroke and heart attack risks. And this one is key. Staying mentally and socially active. Social isolation is associated with about 50% increased risk of dementia. And one of the things that we clearly saw over COVID was because of the isolation, was a huge increase in dementia symptoms. So I get phone calls every day with people whose parents or spouses or family members are having dementia symptoms. That wasn't the case prior to the pandemic. Most of my calls were assisted living. Someone just ready to move to, needed a little bit of assistance and ready to move to an assisted living community. Now the majority of people that I work with have some form of memory impairment and are looking for memory care. Staying both socially active and mentally active and fit will significantly decrease your risk. Okay, so that's, if you know anyone who is socially isolated, as we age, our world kind of shrinks. Again, I'll use my mom, right? She was incredibly active 5 years ago. She volunteered at the Bushville, she volunteered at Blood Bank, she volunteered at CPTV, she did all these things. She was in DAR, she was active at church in the choir. We laughed and said she had a much more active social life than my husband and I. Fast forward 5 years, and all those activities except cards with her girlfriends has faded away. She goes to church, but she doesn't go in choir. She's not on the committees. She's not volunteering. Her world has shrunk a little bit. And part of that's normal, but if your world gets too small, you become isolated. And visits from family are not enough. I use the example, right? People will tell me, oh, well, I stop in and see my mom, twice a week. Well, that's wonderful. That's great. And keep doing that. But I have a 24-year-old son. And would it be weird? Would you guys think it was weird if I said I was his only, if I was going to see him all the time, and that was his only friend, was his mom? Right? That's a little strange, right? So why do we think it's okay if our only friend at 85 is our kids? Right? It's this. We think that's okay, but we all need social interaction of our peers. We need social interaction with people that went through the same things as we did growing up, that we can talk to about those things. And family is fabulous and so vitally important, but also vitally important is interaction with that peer group, same age, having discussions, whatever, whether it's playing cards, or whether it's a book group where there's some people, or whether it's a religious group that gets together. But having that social activity with peers of your own age group is vitally important. And there could be a mix of those, but having those connections with other people is just huge. Otherwise, our world shrinks and we become isolated with just family visits, which is wonderful. But it's always not enough, okay? So really, anything that engages your mind, conversations, it help you process information, that develops your thinking skills, is good for the brain. Arts and crafts, especially again in groups, because we want to encourage that socialization. Playing a musical instrument or singing, doing brain teasers or puzzles, or playing Scrabble, playing cards, board games or chess, reading books and doing creative writing, keeping a diary, learning a new language. And now you can learn new languages online, right? But doing those types of things that keep you socially engaged. One of my clients long time ago would tell me there are 5 things that you need to live a productive life. Faith, family, friend, or 4 things. Faith, family, friends, and purposeful work. So having that purpose, whether it's the purpose is being a friend to somebody, having a group of people that you socially interact with, or learning playing a musical instrument, singing, having a purpose, leading a group. Having that purpose in life is incredibly, incredibly important. I had a couple who moved into assisted living. Both had a little bit of memory issues, and the daughter was really concerned about mom. She said, I don't know how she's going to do here. So well, let's just see. Mom did fine. Mom made herself a whole new group of friends, and she thrived. She got together with the girls all the time, and she was having this great old time. Dad didn't make any really good connections, and he was kind of withdrawing and showing more and more signs of dementia. And so we brainstormed, and I talked to the daughter and said, okay, well, what did he like before? And I realized, oh my gosh, he was a pastor before. So this particular community did not have any religious services. And so we got together, I got together with the activities director of the community and said, hey, would you like to have religious activities? And she was like, we would love to, we just haven't found anyone to be able to do that. I said, we've got a plan. And so she went to this gentleman and said, hey, I heard you were a pastor, and I've been looking for somebody. I want to start a religious service. Could you help me? I gave him purpose. All of a sudden, all those signs of dementia disappeared. He started this group that meets every Sunday. He puts together a service. He writes the sermon. He was a pastor. He can do that in his sleep. He writes a little sermon. They got somebody to play the piano, and they have a service every Sunday. And he's thriving now. He had a purpose. He became engaged. He got that social interaction. So staying with mentally sharp and challenging yourself with new activities is incredibly important. One of the things that's very, very interesting is trying to learn new things. How many of you get up in the morning and have the exact same routine? You brush your hair on one side first. You start your brushing your teeth on one side first. When you get in the shower, do you wash your face first, then your hair, then your body? Do you do it always the same? Most people do. Most people do, right? They wash their, however they do it, right? But they do a certain, right? Always start at one side of your teeth, right? Then you go to the other next set, right? Most people have this built-in habitual way of doing things. Your brain's programmed, right? Simple things. Try changing that up. Tomorrow morning or tonight, try changing that up. Because even something as simple as starting to brush your teeth on the other side, or if you're someone who goes in the shower and washes their face first and then their hair and then their body, wash your hair first. Wash your body first. It challenges the brain. Your brain has pathways and it's kind of a rote thing. But even something as simple as that, you are challenging your brain. You're learning, you're doing something a little bit differently. So challenging your brain in different ways of doing things is great for the brain. It's absolutely wonderful. Okay? So how do we know when it's time to seek assistance? And when is normal aging, forgetfulness, or mild cognitive impairment moving into dementia where we should have some help? Confusion or disorientation that impairs safety. Forgetting how to get somewhere if they're active and driving. Not wanting to drive to new places is an indication too. Or places that you haven't been to. So I had a client who lives in Southington, and she used to go to Bristol all the time. But she was looking for vacuum cleaner bags, and I said, oh, there's a vacuum cleaner bag, there's a vacuum cleaner shop in Bristol, 15 minutes down the road. she went to Bristol and couldn't find it and came back, and she said, I don't remember where Stafford Avenue is. Okay. Stafford Avenue in Bristol is a pretty main road. It's not a side thing. So, she should have been able to remember that. So those are times where that confusion can impair your safety. Wandering, or the caregiver can't keep you safe. So somebody is going out. If you are the caregiver while you're in the shower, they're sneaking out the door. That could be an issue. This is a big one because people always ask me, well, when will I know when it's time to get some help, or to move my family member to a memory care community? And many times it's well past time for the actual person. But I tell people, when the caregiver stress becomes overwhelming. So if you're one of those 16 million caregivers that are unpaid, and you're caring for somebody with dementia, it's very, very stressful. And so when that caregiving stress becomes too much, before it becomes too much, hopefully, you get help and start to ask for help and assistance. A decline in physical health, or a decline in a caregiver's health, or if your doctor says, you know what, Sally, I think it's time that you get some help with Rob. So if there's medical people telling you it's time to get some help, then it's time to get some help. And then again, your social life shrinks to that isolation, right? If someone's social life is shrunk down to not having social interactions, then it's really time, because that social interaction is so vitally important. Okay, so just really quickly on what we do, we help seniors navigate this crazy world of healthcare. The healthcare system has become significantly more confusing and harder to navigate. We help seniors find the best senior living memory care communities, and we have a large network of referral sources. So if there's something that you are looking for, chances are I probably can give you the referrals, the resource to that, to help solve that problem. And then we also work as care managers and patient advocates. Good, I don't like to spend much time. Questions?
I've got a question. My son's mother-in-law has been diagnosed at 75 with Alzheimer's, and it has progressed very quickly. Mm-hmm. And his father-in-law, who takes care of his mother, they go to swim school, and he needs help, but he's reluctant to ask for it because he feels like he's a quitter or whatever. Are there ways to help the caregiver accept the fact that they need help? Is that?
Absolutely. So there are a ton of caregiver support groups available.
Oh. Okay.
Many of them are free.
Okay.
But yes, I wish I had them for right now, but
this is
there
in
are
California,
some.
unfortunately.
Okay. But there are.
I didn't even know there was such a thing.
Yeah, there are some wonderful resources out and available. The handouts that I gave you today are through the National Institute on Health, and if you just even Google National Institute of Health publications, they have over 100 different publications that are available that you can download, or that they'll send you paper copies for free. Unfortunately, I ran out of a bunch of them and ordered them 6 weeks ago, and called actually this week. They got lost, so they're reordering them. But there's a caregiver's handbook, which is a wonderful resource.
Through NIH.
Through NIH.
Okay.
That's a great resource. But yes, trying
Good.
to, I think part of it is letting people know that they're not alone, and that the caregiver stress is real, and that they're not failing is so huge, because so many people, they feel like they're alone. They feel like they're the only ones going through this, and I'm doing it wrong. And it's very stressful, and it's very guilt-ridden. I do a presentation on caregiving. It's called Caregiving, Guilt and Duty. It's complicated, isn't it? Because it is. It's very complicated. But so I would take a look at that resource. If you
No,
can't find it,
thank you.
just you can shoot me an email. All
Okay.
my information is on the
Oh, great.
brochure,
Okay, good.
and I can email it to you.
Thank you, Liz.
Mhm. Any other questions?
Thank you so much.
You're welcome. Thank you.
Very much. Thank you.